This conference will now be recorded.
Okay, so everyone on their best behavior. We're being recorded, okay? All right. No trouble over here tonight. Okay. So so men have an obligation to pray 3 times a day. Okay. Women do not. Why would there be a difference between men's obligations and women's obligations when it comes to prayer or in general? Where do we have the difference between men and women's obligations?
Home, family,
Well, that's almost a basis, but what is the structure?
time.
Good.
Time.
Time. Positive time bound mitzvot, women are exempted from. For example,
Hurry, maybe.
okay, let's keep davening aside for a minute. For example,
The time bound.
which positive time bound mitzvot are women exempted from?
Tali and Tefillin.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. Talit and tefillin are good examples. Okay, talit there's no obligation at night. Tefillin there's no obligation at night. Those are positive time-bound mitzvot. Good. Let's think holidays. Sukkot. Okay, women are not obligated to sit in the sukkah, right? They're not obligated to shake the lulav and etrog, right? In all these situations, if a woman wants to, she can, and would even make a bracha, exception, a few exceptions, but not obligated. How about shofar? This is a tricky one.
No,
No what?
women don't.
They
Are
also
not
have
obligated.
to hear.
Okay, women are not obligated to have to hear the shofar on Rosh Hashanah. However, women have sort of accepted upon themselves as almost an obligation, but it's not an obligation. Okay? Okay, how about Shabbat? Why? It's a positive time-bound mitzvah. Granted, the don'ts of Shabbat, when it comes to the don't do's, there is no difference between men and women obligations. All the don't do's apply equally to men and women. When it comes to the do mitzvot, right? So Shabbos has 39 main categories of the don'ts. We're starting that, please God, next week, right? But what are the do's of Shabbat?
Lighting
Candles, that's the rabbinic do of Shabbat. What's the Torah level thou shalt do of Shabbat? Yes, but how? Kiddush. Exactly. Kiddush. Okay? So, and women are obligated in Kiddush. Fully obligated in Kiddush. Equally obligated in Kiddush. Okay? If I'm using terms that you're not familiar with, don't be bashful, right? That's rule number 1 of this class. Don't be bashful, right? And say, right, I told you guys my power of a challenge story, right? Okay.
But this is a basic question, but I've been following with the other terms. What's the difference between positive and negative time for mitzvah?
Okay. There are certain mitzvot that thou shalt, you should do, right? Men, you should wrap the tefillin on your hands and on your head. You shall make kiddush, right?
Mhm.
You shall sit in a sukkah during the holiday of Sukkot. You should hear the shofar, right?
Mhm.
And then there are the don't mitzvot.
Oh, okay, that's
Don't
okay.
eat meat and milk together,
Okay, I
right?
just didn't understand the concept of positive and negative, but I
Yes,
understand the
yes. Right. Very often, in our ears, my dear, we hear positive is something good, negative is something bad,
yeah, makes a lot of
right?
sense.
Yes. So a better way of putting it is a commandment to do
Mm-hmm.
or a prohibition
Mm-hmm.
to not
To
do.
not do, sure.
Okay, that's a better way of categorizing them. Okay, so why are women obligated, and women are fully obligated in kiddush to the point that a woman can make kiddush for a man? They're equally obligated, the same way that a man can make kiddush, a woman can make kiddush. But why? That's certainly a positive time-bound mitzvah. Comes around every week. And then it's not there Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday night. It's back again. So that's a special case. Because the Torah, during the time of the Aseret HaDibrot, the Ten Commandments, the words shamor, which means abstain from, guard the Shabbat, from not desecrating it by the prohibitions, not doing that which is prohibited. That shamor, zachor, which is mentioned, remember, do the Shabbat, as we sing Friday night, shamor v'zachor b'dibur echad. They were said simultaneously. Therefore, we learn out whoever is obligated in the prohibitions of Shabbat is also obligated in the positive aspects of Shabbat, which is kiddush. Okay? And rabbinically, it's the candle lighting, and that actually has become the normal domain of the women, right? That's where they do it. Okay. Pesach is another example. The Pesach Seder. Are the women Passover Seder, are women obligated in that?
Yes.
They are. Well, that's certainly positive time-bound mitzvah. Why are women obligated in that? Well, are women obligated in the prohibition, don't eat chametz? Chametz is anything that's leavened, that's become risen. Are they obligated in that?
Yes.
Absolutely. Why? It's a negative, right? It's a prohibition. And when it comes to the prohibitions, men and women are equally obligated. Well, the very same pasuk, the very same verse, which says, thou shalt eat the matzah on that first night, says, thou shalt not eat chametz. And therefore, we understand, we learn out, the Talmud learns out. What is the Talmud?
It's the commentary on the Mishnah.
Oral law.
It's okay. And so what is the Talmud and the Mishnah?
The
Oral law.
The oral law. What is the oral law?
The how-tos of the commandments.
Yes, the explanation that were given to Moses on Sinai as to what is the meaning of these different verses, these different teachings, these different mitzvot. Right? The classic example, it says you should have an oat. An oat means a sign. You should have an oat on your hand and a totafot between your eyes. What is an oat, a sign? At least we know what the word means, but we don't know what the sign is. And it says totafot between your eyes. What is totafot? Looking throughout the entire scripture, Tanakh, you won't find totafot. So what is that? That is the tefillin. How do we know what it is? That was explained to Moses on Sinai, Moshe on Har Sinai, exactly what it means. That was eventually incorporated into the Mishnah and, as you said, expounded upon, explained, debated and explained in the Gemara, in the Talmud. So the Gemara learns out whoever is obligated in don't eat chametz is obligated in eat the matzah. So that's why those two are somewhat exceptions. Shabbat and Pesach are somewhat exceptions. They are positive time-bound mitzvot that women are obligated. Havdalah. What is Havdalah, first of all? Yes, Havdalah is that which we do. Are you familiar with Havdalah?
Yeah, and
Right?
Saturday evening.
I'm sorry?
Saturday evening.
Yes, Saturday evening. That is how we conclude the Shabbat and end the Shabbat prohibitions and to our weekdays. Okay? Now, are women obligated in that? So that's a question mark. Why is it a question mark, Josiah?
Because it's not something that they could do on behalf of like a man, but it is something.
That's the result of what, since they're not fully obligated, that's the result of that. But why would that be somewhat hanging in balance? Well, what's the reason to say that they're exempt? Simple. What's the reason why they're exempt?
Time bound.
positive time-bound mitzvah.
Mhm.
What's the reason to say they might be obligated? Shabbat. We said they're obligated in the positive Shabbats. But is this Shabbat or not Shabbat? This is the ending of Shabbat. So this is a real borderline over here, right? And therefore, right, it's best for a woman to hear it from a man. But in a situation where she can't, a woman would make her own Havdalah. Okay? Simone, I have to mute you. Nothing personal, but you're bouncing back on me. Okay?
Would that mean the man should light the candle, or should the woman light the candle?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
Okay? It doesn't really matter. But where it comes up is, right, this is a concept we had before. If I've already made kiddush, but you haven't heard kiddush, I can make it again for you. Why? I'm no longer obligated. I already fulfilled my obligation. But we explained I haven't really fulfilled my obligation. Why not? If there's one Jew in the world, if there's one Jew in the world who has not fulfilled their obligation, there's something lacking, not just in their fulfillment, but in my fulfillment. And that's why I can make kiddush here in shul. And someone goes over and says, Rabbi, I didn't hear kiddush. Do you know how to make it yourself? No, I don't. I can make it again for them. I go home, my daughter didn't come to shul, I can make kiddush for her. I can make it over and over and over for someone that's obligated. But for someone that's not obligated, amen. For someone that's not obligated, I shouldn't say it again. Because if I already fulfill my obligation and then I'm obligated, then it goes in the category of what? A bracha in vain. In Hebrew, bracha levatala, a blessing in vain. So let's say I made kiddush, I made havdalah in shul Saturday night, like we used to before we had this the COVID crazy. So I made havdalah in shul. Can I go home now and make havdalah for my wife?
Yes.
I cannot, because she might not be obligated, and therefore I can't make it again. So therefore, I would always, when I make havdalah in shul, and Natalie would make havdalah by herself at home, I would tell people, if you're planning to go home to make havdalah for your wife, daughters, minor children, then don't have in mind to fulfill your havdalah through my havdalah. That way you're still fully obligated, and that way when you go home, you're making havdalah for yourself, and when you do that, you will also cover the others. Okay, which brings us back to how we got started. I love tangents. Now, tangents are important because it fills in so much of the blanks. So how about davening? Women in davening, where is that going to be at? What's the reason to say that they're not obligated in davening?
Children.
That will be, see, that's more, the whole children thing is an explanation that we give.
Okay.
In other words, we want to wrap our heads around, why does the Torah exempt women from positive time-bound mitzvot? So some say the Torah exempted them because they're busy at the home with the children, right? But there's more to it than that. A woman is a time-bound mitzvah, meaning men have nothing that works on a time-bound cycle clock. Men do not have anything that works on a time-bound cycle clock. Women, with their menstrual periods, women work on a time-bound clock. They have their time-bound mitzvot. They are a time-bound mitzvah. What is that? The family purity and all that goes along with it.
Yes.
That is their mitzvah. They are a time-bound mitzvah, so they don't need these extraneous time-bound mitzvah to be imposed upon them. They are a time-bound mitzvah. And understand something very, very important. Understand something very important. Men and women are different physically. Men and women are different spiritually. And people have different needs. Men have the spiritual need of all those mitzvot, including the positive time-bound mitzvot. Women are not being ruled against, or not being discriminated against, that they don't have these mitzvot. I'm not being discriminated against. I'm not a Kohen. I'm not being discriminated against because I don't have the Kohen mitzvot. In order for me to reach my spiritual perfection, I need to do the mitzvot that are relevant to me. I'm not a Kohen. Those are not relevant to me. Those do not give me spiritual perfection. Those mitzvot that are relevant, that apply to a king. I'm not a king. And therefore, those are not necessary for me to reach my spiritual perfection. And for me, it becomes almost a senseless non-mitzvah. Women are not being discriminated against. Women with their spiritual makeup that only God understands dictates which mitzvot do women need to do in order to reach their spiritual perfection. And not included on that list are the positive time-bound mitzvot. It's not that women are being discriminated against, not that they are second-class citizens. It's each one having what is needed for them to reach their spiritual perfection. The blessing that differentiates in the morning between men and women, we'll come to blessings soon. Women make the blessing, Sha'asani kirtzono. Blessed are you, God, that you made me according to your will. The understanding of that is, you've made me in accordance with your will. I don't need all of these outside reminders. I don't need the tzitzit, which serve as reminders, and the tefillin, which serve as reminders. Men need to be hit over the head with a 2x4, and then maybe we'll get it. Maybe. Women do not. Women are more intuitively aligned with the spirituality. A woman is Sha'asani kirtzono. You've made me in accordance. I align with ritzono. I align with your will. Now, a woman wants to shake a lulav and etrog, beautiful. Wants to hear shofar, that's become accepted, beautiful. But it's not an obligation, and it's not when it turns into a woman's lib issue that we are going to, right? That is very, very misguided, misinformed, not educated in their understanding of what it's about. Okay. So davening prayer is pretty time bound. I've got to say Shema I have to say the Shema. I have to say the Shema by 3 halachic hours into the day. We're not going to get to that right now, right? By whatever time, and the Amidah. So it's time bound. Yes, but it's rabbinically time bound. The Torah says, as we say in the Shema, you have to serve Hashem b'chol levavchem. You serve God with all of your heart. And the Gemara says, how do you serve God with your heart? My heart is just, thank God, beating away over there, right? I don't control it at all, right? The Gemara says, what is the service of the heart? That is tefillah. That is prayer. That's not time bound. That's a general command. Therefore, the general understanding is that women should pray each morning. They don't need to do the entire davening structure that the men do, but they should be sure to say Brachot in the morning. They should say Shema in the morning. Ideally, they should say the blessing after Shema until the Amidah and say the Amidah in the morning. Women should have a semblance of tefillah that they do. Leah, when you were studying with your partner there in Los Angeles, so how did she instruct you as a woman in terms of your morning davening?
Yeah, she said exactly that. She said morning blessings and that's it. And that's all we're obligated to.
Okay. And she also said to try to do the Shema and Amidah, the Shema and Esrei?
Yeah, don't we all have to say Shema? I mean, morning and night?
I'm sorry?
Don't we all have to say Shema morning and night?
You should say Shema before you go to sleep at night. Yes, but in the context of yeah, with all the blessings, not. Yeah. Okay, so that was my short answer to your question.
Thank you.
Leticia.
I also have
Okay.
a quick question.
Yes, Lan.
So, the prayer Nishmat is also time bound, right? So you say it for 40 days. And I've been saying it, and then I was hanging out with some friends a little bit too late, and I saw it was past 12 a.m. Does that mean I need to start over again? If it's
I'm
past
not
12
sure I'm not sure, this 40-day nishmat, I'm not sure what you're referring to.
You never heard of no?
Look, there are lots of things that are called a segula. A segula is, if you'll do this, you'll have a special kindness from heaven, right?
Yeah,
And
it's
that's
it's Nishmat. So,
yeah, that it sounds like that this is that's the category that this would fit into, Leah.
okay. So,
Yeah.
in
But
according
midnight is not a Jewish cutoff point,
okay.
right?
So then,
There's one time where midnight is a Jewish cutoff point, and it's not midnight; it's chatzot. It's the halachic midnight, meaning midnight, not meaning 12.00.00, right? But how many hours of night do we have? We call it chatzot, which is actually the midpoint of how many dark hours do we have? The midpoint. When does midnight become an issue? No. Pesach, the Seder night, right? Ideally, you're supposed to eat the afikomen because according to one opinion, the korban Pesach, the Pesach, the Passover sacrifice had to be eaten by chatzot, by midnight. But otherwise, midnight is not from out, right? Once it gets dark, right? Today is Tuesday, right? But it's right. Tuesday is Yom Shlishi, but now it's dark outside. It's already Yom Revi'i. The same way on Friday, once it gets dark, it's no longer Friday. What is it? It's Shabbat. And on Saturday, once it gets dark, it's no longer Shabbat. What is it? It's Sunday, so to speak. It's already Saturday night, right? The Jewish day, of course, begins with the night and then becomes the day. Where do we learn that out from? Bereshit, creation. What does it say? Vayihi erev, and it was evening. Vayihi boker, and it was morning. Yom, day, fill in the blank, right? Vayihi erev, vayihi boker. And that's always because night, well, it's getting better all the time. We go from darkness to light, right? This world is compared to night. The world is compared to day. Why? Because night is a time of confusion, of obfuscation, of a lack of clarity, and day is a time of brilliant clarity. Olam hazeh, olam haba. That's how we always transition. Okay. Oops. Speaking of darkness and night, Ladero, could you hit that for us? You'll see over there. You see the three, the one that's the push button in the middle. Or maybe that's it. Okay. Yeah. Speaking of which, yeah, yeah. Just to make my point. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. All right. And just once we touch upon it, then let's go through this. What are the different components of Havdalah? There's bisamim, there's spices, fire.
And the wine.
You have the wine, and you have the blessing of separation. Okay. Hamavdil, bein kodesh, who separates between kodesh l'chol, the holy, and the mundane, or l'choshech, light and darkness, bein Yisroel amin, between Israel and the nations, right? Then Yom HaShvi, between the seventh day, l'sheish d'mei ha'maaseh, and the 6 days of work. Baruch atah Hashem, bless you, God, who separates bein kodesh l'chol, between the holy and the mundane. Okay, why do we have the besamim? Why do we have the spices?
The sweetness. No?
Aren't there like smelling salts in a way?
Yes. On Shabbos we have what's called the neshama yetera. We have this extra spirituality that enters on Shabbat, and it leaves after Shabbat. So it's like the smelling salts, right? It's like, oh, I can't stand. I'm losing my balance. Help me out. Oh, thank you. Right? So the spices are there to help resuscitate us as the neshama yetera leaves us. That's why when Yom ends, no besamim. Why not?
No extra soul.
Because this extra soul is unique to Shabbat and not to holidays. Okay. Why do we have fire?
Because it's a prohibition on Shabbos.
Okay, one reason is we weren't allowed to utilize fire on Shabbat. Now we can. And therefore, we have fire. For that reason, do we have fire when we make Havdalah after Yom Tov? No, why not?
Because it's not Shabbat.
And on Yom Tov, were we able to utilize fire?
Yes.
We can. How does Yom Tov primarily differ than Shabbat? One word? Cooking.
Oh, that's right.
Cooking. Right? On Yom Tov, we can utilize fire. So on Shabbat, we have the fire afterwards to show the fire that we were not able to utilize until now we can. That's one reason. Another reason is the Medrash tells us that Adam and Eve, Adam and Chava, had their first fire on a Saturday night. They had a Saturday night bonfire. That's beautiful, a little kumsitz, right? So they had fire was created Saturday night. So once again, after Yom Tov ends on a Tuesday night, strike two. Both reasons for fire do not apply. Fire was not created on Tuesday night, and it's not that now we can use fire, but before we could not. We were able to use fire before because on Yom Tov we're allowed to do one word, cooking. How about Yom Kippur? Is there fire after Yom Kippur? So, that's interesting. Why is that interesting? Why is it getting sliced? Yom Kippur ends on a Tuesday night. So fire wasn't created then. So no reason for fire. But in what way is Yom Kippur Shabbat-like and not Yom Tov-like? No cooking. So therefore, one of the two reasons applies. Right? Fire was not created, so to speak, on Motzei, on the end of Yom Kippur, but we were not allowed to use the fire on Yom Kippur, and now we are allowed to use the fire. So on Yom Kippur, we have fire as part of our Havdalah. However, whereas on Shabbat, what do? We strike a match. We use our clicker, and we start the fire. The fire on Motzei Yom Kippur should be taken from an existing flame. And that way, it doesn't show creation of fire, but it does show this fire that's been burning the whole time that we were not able to utilize. Now we can. Okay? But on a Motzei Yom Tov, when a Yom Tov ends, there's always the cup of wine. There's always the blessing of Hamavdil, of separating. But there is no besamim, because there was no extra soul. There is no fire, because you don't have either the creation of fire or the now allowance of heretofore prohibited fire. Okay. Let's get back to where we were over here, and that is continuing in the book, and this will be our last time. After that, you have to finish it up on your own, but let's go through some of the different things. Okay, and this is a great book to have for yourselves as a reference afterwards. And in the back, you actually have a listing of all the foods you want to look it up, right? Ice cream in cone. So you tell me, in a tasteless cone, shakol. In a tasty sugar cone, mizot on the cone, and shakol on the ice cream. Good. Okay. Interesting. Instant potatoes. Adama. From potato flour.
Charcoal.
Shakol. Exactly right. Okay. Italian bread. I don't know what we have against the Italians over here. What's going on over here, Matteo? Huh? You gotta make us think. Yeah, I'm not sure why they felt the need to include Italian bread as hamotzi.
Trying to throw you off.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Okay, guys. Okay, so we are on page 231. Okay, the bracha for baked goods, anything made from the 5 grains, right? If it's proper bread, then it's called pas, right? Whatever, it's bread, we make hamotzi on it. Otherwise, it is, okay. In order to achieve the status of lechem on page 232, the basic ingredient of this bread must be dough from any of the 5 species. It must be fit to be eaten with the main dish of a meal, okay? And it must be made of a solid dough baked in an oven. Okay. You know, they have these different specialty challahs now, right? And some of them are so cake-like, right? You know, with raisins and chocolate chips and cinnamon swirl and, it really, yeah. Okay. Otherwise, we have what's called pas haba b'kisnin, and that is the general category for all these other things made of the 5 grains that's not bread. For examples, give it to me, guys.
Like a cake.
Cake,
A
good.
muffin,
Sorry,
muffin,
muffin, biscuits, pancakes, cinnamon rolls. I'm getting hungry. Entenmann donuts, right? Pie, right? All these different types of cakes. How about pasta? Yeah, pasta is also, right? Well, it's interesting. So you make mizonot on pasta if the pasta is the classic pasta that's made from flour, right? But now you go and you have your red bean pasta, you have your chickpea pasta, you have your zucchini pasta, right? All those things, right? So in those situations, what bracha would you make? I think so. Why shakol? But it's made from a red bean.
It's not its original form.
Yeah, it sure don't look like a red bean to me, right?
He said
Right. So
shakol or
it has.
hadama.
I'm sorry.
He said shakol or hadama for that
So
one.
what I think, let me see next. Let me see what it says after Italian bread. If it has our red bean, if I won't even have it. It's more of a. This was published a while ago. So what we're saying over here, Leah, is that being that it has lost its shape and presentation of being a red bean, right? So therefore, I think it would be shahakol on that. Yeah. Yeah. Now, but sometimes they make spaghetti like zucchini spaghetti, right? So that is not ground, right? The red bean is made into red bean flour, and then, right? Zucchini is simply like they put it through a spiral. Yeah, thank you. Right? So that really is zucchini. That's just strips of zucchini. Right? So that would clearly be bore pri adama. Yes, Gabriella.
I had a really hard time. I found the answer, but I just wanted to share this. I had a really hard time finding the bracha for a tortilla. So it's not in the Brachot book, and it's not on the app, and it wasn't on the CRC app either. So I had to go to the OU online, and it just was interesting to me because it's lechem, it's hamotzi for a tortilla.
Is it made from corn?
No, flour. I'm sorry, flour tortilla.
Flour tortilla. Okay, so that's an important point over here, right? The important point is as follows.
For, it says corn tortilla though.
If that's a corn tortilla, so that'll be shahakol. Yeah. So an issue that comes up that we touched upon a little while ago is called koveya seuda, which means, am I turning this into my meal? Right? And the classic example of that is pizza. Right? Pizza used to be a snack, right? But now pizza, that becomes a meal for us. So even though it's not regular bread dough, it's made with lots of the dough. I think is made with fruit juice. It's not, right, all that stuff. Right? It's not typical bread. But if you are going to be koveya your suuda, you're going to establish. Koveya means to establish. Suuda means meal. If this is becoming my meal, if this is the mainstay of my meal, then one would make hamotzi, and one would bench afterwards, right? Remember, we spent a couple weeks ago. We went through the after blessing on cakes is the alamichya, is that try, what do they call that?
Three-faceted.
That's the three-faceted. Thank you. Okay, so take a look over here, guys, on page 235. The following 2 items present a halachic difficulty: pizza and calzone. It's a dietary difficulty,
No.
It's a halachic difficulty. Why? In addition to the problem of exactly what amount of pizza may be eaten without concern of the issue of kvias su'uda, establishing a meal, even a small amount of pizza may require hamotzi. Pizza is covered with cheese, which is a meal food, meaning the cake is covered with a non-meal food, meaning a non-meal food would be cherries, apple pie filling, right? Sugar, cinnamon. That's not a meal food. Cheese is a meal food. In addition, nowadays, pizza itself is usually eaten as the mainstay of the meal, and it's very difficult to justify reciting a mizonos. When pizza first became popular in this country, it was eaten as a snack while walking in the street. There were no sit-down pizza shops. Therefore, the accepted psak halach, the accepted halachic ruling was mizonot. But today, families eat pizza as their supper without a side dish. It's produced to be meal food, not a snack. Therefore, one who eats even one slice of pizza or calzone as a meal, even for breakfast or lunch, should recite Hamotzi and Birkat Hamazon. Okay?
Okay.
Okay. Now, another thing that comes up, we're going to jump up ahead a little bit, is any of you guys who have flown and ordered kosher meals on the plane, there's something called, page 253, mizonot bread. Now, mizonot bread was an ingenious idea with halachic difficulties. The idea is, well, let's make a roll for the kosher meal on the plane. It's really hard on a plane to have to get up and go wash your hands, netilat yadayim, for hamotzi. That's a challenge. There's a line for the bathroom. It's not much of a sink to wash in there, right? Right? And it's challenging. Along came this ingenious, unfortunately, non-solution. What was the ingenious non-solution? Let's make a roll and use a lot of fruit juice in that roll, and therefore it magically becomes a mizonot roll. So now I can have my roll, I can have my cake and eat it too. I can have my roll, I can eat a regular meal, but not need to wash for it. And that way on the plane, it's very simple. They give me my meal, I desperately try to break that plastic and try to get in there. Sometimes it can be very challenging. But if I'm successful and I can get into that plastic, past that, I have my meal, then I just sit there like a normal human being. I'm not getting up and running down the aisle and coming back mumbling as I'm driving my hands. I just sit there and eat my meal. Wonderful. Shalom al Yisroel, as we say. Peace on Israel. It's all good. Except that it's not. Why is it not good?
Because it doesn't taste like the fruit.
Yeah.
It's not.
That's not a cake.
Yeah.
That's a roll. And I'm eating it in the context of my meal. As bread, as I would eat bread and a meal. Okay? So therefore, it's really a stretch to say the bracha would be mizonot on that. What I sometimes do is I'll eat the whole meal and not have that roll. And make my brachot the proper brachot for whatever food stuff I'm eating. And then, an hour or two later, when I'm ready for a snack, then I can eat that with a mizonot as a snack. Because then it's not in the context of a meal. I'm not eating it as bread of a meal. I'm eating it as a muffin. That's how I'm eating it. But eating it in the context of that meal, that is going to be problematic.
So even if it's not a mazonos bread, let's just say you had in that context just a slice of bread?
No.
Okay.
If it's bread,
Then
then eating it as part of a meal or eating it as a snack, you need to wash and hamotzi.
okay.
Yes, take a look on the bottom of here on page 255. Airline meals. Airlines usually serve packaged kosher meals. These meals are commonly accompanied with a roll or bun marked mizonos. It says it on it. This practice is misleading and improper. Although the bun itself may require only mizonos, which is by no means certain, the fact that the bun is eaten with the other foods as a meal gives it a status of kaviyat suda. Kaviyat suda, I'm establishing my meal. One must certainly wash, recite on his adayim, and amotzi. One may eat the meal without the bun, recite a bracha acharona, the proper after blessing, and eat the bun as a snack later during the course of the flight. In this case, one may perhaps rely on those opinions cited that one may recite mizonos even if the taste of the fruit is not noticeable. Okay? So that's what one can do. Okay. Okay. Let's touch upon rice, 273. So in general, something made from the 5 grains would require mizonos. And the after blessing is the 3-faceted blessing, ala mechya. Rice is an exception. Rice is not one of the 5 grains, yet the bracha on it is mizonot. However, the after blessing is not the 3-faceted blessing. The after blessing is number 3 in our list, what we call what, ladies and gentlemen?
Number 3.
Borei nefashot. It's the simple after blessing. So rice has this in-between status. The bracha is the bracha beforehand is mizonot. The bracha afterwards is the borei nefashot. I know this is a lot coming all at once. This right? You guys are good? Okay, because we've been studying this for many weeks. Okay.
Can you explain one more time why the rice is mizona?
I'm not sure. Let's see what it says over here. Why was it given? That's a good question. What page did I tell you guys before? I lost it already. 273. All the rice is neither one of the 5 species of grain, nor among those species that Israel is praised. The sages nevertheless require that one recite mizonos for eating rice. Why? Rice is similar to the 5 species in that it is a satiating staple food. Okay? And consequently deserving of a mizonos. However, since it lacks the importance of the 5 species of grain, it does not merit the alamichia, which is the 3-faceted blessing. Thus, rice is unique as a food in that one recites a mizonot and a bari nefashot, right? And this actually leads into a little bit of a Pesach issue. What is the rice Pesach issue that comes up? Huh? Kitniot, right? Meaning those of the Sephardic tradition do eat rice. Those of the Ashkenazic tradition do not eat rice. The Sephardic tradition says it's not one of the 5 grains. Therefore, it cannot become chametz. It cannot leaven. It does not rise. And therefore, have it on Pesach, right? And that goes along with many of the other kitniot, the beans, right? Chickpeas, all these other beans the Sephardim have. Ashkenazim, so our custom is that kitniot are often mixed with other grains. Actually, you find that. right? When you go and buy different beans, you might find different grains mixed in the bag. It's not always perfectly uniform. So that's a concern that we have. Other things got mixed up. Also, a concern is that it can get confused with, right? People see Rabbi Ciner eating that, and it sure looked like,
Cornbread.
right? That cornbread sure looked like bread, right? But that's another reason that's given. Though, with potato starch, it looks like cake. Natalie makes amazing cakes on Pesach. And, she uses almond flour, right, which is fine, right? And yeah, all these, so, but that is our custom. And it's 8 days. So, you always people, why don't the, I'm sorry?
Us Persians can't make it 8 days without
Without
rice.
your rice. Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
Right. For Persians, the rice is such a staple. Yeah, that's true. Yeah. For non-Persians, it's not necessarily such a burning issue. Yeah. Okay. Okay. Okay, so let's take a look at page 304. Right, some examples over here. Right? Chopped nuts, right? As long as unless they're ground very finely, so you have pieces of nuts. So what bracha would you make on it? Right? Well, either eitz or adama, depending on which nuts they are. Potato chips. If they're from finely sliced potatoes, ha'adama, right? But if you're buying yourself your Pringles, shahakol. Why would Pringles be shahakol? I'm sorry? And but more importantly, it's not from a slice of potato. It's from ground up potatoes. How else do they get that perfect shape that each one fits exactly onto the other one? Right? Okay, popcorn.
Rabbi, so with like the first ingredient on a potato, if it says potatoes and then so and so, that still would be adama. I mean, that would be shehako.
Yes, if it's made from potato flour, then it lost its essence of a potato and becomes shahakol. And we'll see in a moment. First, popcorn, adama. It's been formed into a new shape, right? Even though it doesn't look like corn to you, well, when you pop corn, that's what corn looks like. When was the first one to realize that? It must have been like, wow, eureka, right? Can we patent this? Amazing. Here, Danielle, cornflakes. Cornflakes are normally produced from flattened corn kernels and require a hadama. Any cornflakes produced from corn flour, however, even though the primary ingredient is certainly going to be corn, right? But from corn flour, that would be shahakal. In Israel, there's a company called Telma, and there's Telma cornflakes, and there's, of course, Kellogg's cornflakes. Kellogg's cornflakes are made, I believe, from corn flour, and then they form into their own chips, right? That would be shahakal. The Telma cornflakes, which is from pressed pieces of corn, so that would be ha'adama.
Even if it has a couple extra ingredients on it, or the Telma wouldn't have any other things.
Even if it would have other ingredients, we have an ikar and a tafel, right? We have a primary and secondary. The other ingredients isn't going to make a difference, right?
Yeah.
Right?
That's true.
Yeah. Okay, mashed fruit retains its primary bracha, mashed potatoes, adama, peanut butter, whether it is smooth or chunky, ha'adama. But, Ladero, peanut butter is normally eaten as a tafel to other foods, right? Crackers, and therefore would have no bracha at all, right? But if you want to have a spoonful of peanut butter, Some people like it. Just don't try to whistle soon afterwards. So then, yeah, go for it. Okay. All right, guys, there are lots of other examples that they go through over here. And I think with that, we will, just 1 second. Yeah, I think with that, we will call it, guys. Okay, and like I said, they have a glossary here of all the different brachot, but our eating habits have changed over the years, and this was published. Yeah, I think 2007 is the last edition of this, right? And yeah, right. Tortillas have become. There's also East Coast and West Coast eating, so a lot of things that have become part of our regular palate would not be included over here. Yeah, tortillas, all these sort of things. Okay. Next week, yes. Next week we will start our Shabbat. Okay, and I sent you guys that book. Okay, let me add you guys to our WhatsApp group. Should I add you to the WhatsApp group? Yeah. Okay. Okay, I need to first add your phone numbers. So,
It's really cool to see all the pictures.
Sarah, YouTube. Names it to Sarah again, remind me.
Alvarez, Fedorovsky.
Alvarez. And?
Fedorovsky, F-E-D.
Yeah, Fedorovsky.
So you said so flour tortillas would be Amotzi?
Amotzi, yeah.
Makes sense.
Good. And your phone number, Sarah?
Like
949 899
7279.
7279. Good. Okay, and you have WhatsApp, yeah? Okay.
So having a burrito would be Amotzi and flour.
And
Uh-huh.
Mateo
Yeah. Because it can be
Alvarez. Good. Mateo, your phone number?
561
561
452
452
8225.
8225. Okay.
But no, you don't know until you like.
Go to WhatsApp now.
So let's see.
This is such a resource, and then Shabbos and then lots of mizot, so we don't have the question.
Okay, good night, everybody. Good night, good night.
Night.